Welcome back everyone to Angela's Craft Room. Today I'm doing part 2 of the video that you should have already seen part 1, how we did the mirror image, masked the lady and stamped the leaves. I will put the link to part 1 in the comments below, so you really need to see that one first. And now we're going to do the sponging today and the colouring of the lady. So let's get started. So just bring in a bit of grid paper there. Now this is what we were left with part 1. We've done the mirror image, we've masked the lady with the eclipse masking tape, which I showed you in video 1. So to start with, we're going to use some pear pizzazz and a dauber. And we're just going to, it's best not to have your ink pads too juicy when you're doing this, because you want it to be nice and smooth look. That little foot where I've masked it just keeps coming up there, which is a bit annoying. And as I said yesterday, you can use post-it notes, but I find the eclipse masking tape so much better to use when I'm masking, and a roll of it does last you an awful long time. So I'm just, as I'm inking into the ink pad, I'm also just dabbing it off so that it's not too juicy going on. Now you can see that below the grass, below the tree line, like along here, I've done it a lot darker, and then I'm just bringing it up to the trunk of the leaves. I'm not going to be too fussy today because I just want to really show you how I achieved the scene. So I'm just rubbing onto the masked area before coming off the, and why I'm stroking that is because the masking tape's just coming up a little bit on the edge of her fingernail, just on the end of her finger. So I'm just trying to smooth that out a little bit. So normally I wouldn't go as fast as this with the colouring, but for the purpose of the video I don't normally use the daubers, because I find you can get like a blotch like is in there, and you really need to sponge it out like I am at the moment, just to get rid of it. So I'm not worried too much about that, because we're going to grab the Sahara sand next, and that is going to be your sand. And we can always come back in with the colour at the end. So now we're going to get another dauber and we're going to start onto the sand. And don't worry, I generally go back up into the green so that it's not a direct line where the green finishes and the sand starts. And you can see that I'm starting off on where the mask, this is the mask over the top of the lady, and and you can see that by blending them into each other, you're getting rid of those blotchy marks as well on that side. So we'll just do this side. I just can't do it upside down, I'm sorry, but so you're getting the general ideal. And with the first one, with the first card, the first finished card I showed you in the last tutorial, I did use the daubers for the sky and the water, but because it's such a big area, it's really hard to get that nice smoothed finish that I like to have on my cards. And for the sky today and the water, we're going to use a sponge dauber. So you can see how that's giving you the green here, and then the Sahara sand in colour for the sand. Now I'm just going to use my pool party to do the water. Now you can see that's quite a large area, and it would be very hard, and it was. I'd spent a lot of time on it. So I'm just going to use the sponge dauber for the water. And you can see we're just going over the mirror image at the moment, and you don't think you're putting very much much colour on the water on the sponge brayer, but it's amazing how much ink is on there. And I'll show you at the end the difference when I've used the dauber for the water to when I've used the brayer. There is a difference in the colour. Using the dauber, it was a lot deeper of a colour, but you can achieve that with this as well. And you can see how much easier it is and how nice and blended look you do get by using the brayer. So much quicker, like took me quite a long time to do this water on the first card, and because I like it to look smooth and finished at the end, and it's just up to you like how much of a water that you want. I'm just going to do a little bit over the top of the sand, so I'm bringing the pool party right up over the sand. And this piece of cardstock is shimmery white as well, so that is also covered in the first video. So then we're just going to bring in some soft sky, and I'm just going to rub this off, so I want it to be more blue than green. Okay, so we're just going to go across. Her little arm just keeps coming up on me. So we're just doing this for the sky. So this is Soft Sky, one of the Stampin' Up colours. And I'll most probably bring the dauber back in and just do a little bit more greenery. It's just a personal thing. But you can see how much this is, that little hand there's coming up. So just make sure that you just do the brayer in one direction. Don't go backwards and forwards like this. You can see I'm just doing it in one direction. Just press her hand down there. And I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but it's best when you're doing this technique not to have a really juicy ink pad. So if you're going to ink up your pads, do this technique first and then you can ink them up. Just a little bit at the top there. So I'll show you compared to at the end. Now I just want to put a little bit more green. I hope I'm not going out of focus for you there. Just bring in a little bit more green. So the good thing is you can always go back in afterwards. So I always start off by doing little circles on the masked area and then just coming back onto that little hand of hers just keeps coming up. So I just like it to blend in. So I'm glad we did this over 2 videos because it would have just been too long. Just blend that in a bit more and just grab that soft sky one more time. It's just her arm keeps coming up there, and I'm just going to, it's just one little bit of green that I'm not happy with, so I'm just going to go and blend that sky into the blue, oh sorry, into the green. I'm thinking the sky is blue, so just blend it in. So I think we won't muck around too much because it just takes too much time. So that's all our sponging done, okay? So now I'm just going to grab my tweezers and carefully lift up the mask. So those that didn't see video 1 need to go back. So there is the mask taken off. And now I'm just going to colour her in some of the new blends that Stampin' Up brought out. And I'll just quickly tell you that they're an alcohol based marker, and they have a fine nib on one end and a brush nib on the other end. When you're storing them, they must be stored flat so the alcohol ink inside doesn't go just to one end. And also when you do use them, when you're putting the caps back on, just make sure that they do snap shut, because if you have a loose cap even, it can dry out the ink inside. But they are very easy to use. Now what you get, this is, I think this is rich raspberry. Yes, this is rich raspberry. So you get a light and a dark. So that's where you can blend. So I like to use the light first. So I'm just going to go, and I just like to do, you'll get to know what technique you want to use, but I like to use like a flick sort of stroke. You don't colour them in like that, it's not meant to be like that. So, and then down the bottom here, I'm just going to go just long strokes. And then if you're going from the bottom, you're just doing flicks. So this first, where I'm putting the light on, I'm just laying down the first colour, and then I'm going to be adding some dark, just for some darkened shade. So I'm just going to go, so stroke them down there. And when you first get them, they're going to be really juicy. So a very light hand is recommended. I'm hardly touching that. So with this one, I'm going to leave just along the lady's skirt here and here. That's actually a petticoat underneath. So I'm just going to put that back on, and then I'm going to get the dark, and just where the artist has already put the dark lines in for us, I'm just going to add a bit of darker, and then I take the light and I'm just going to blend that out. So you just get a bit of, now with this dress, because it's got the lines down there, I'm just going to be adding the darker colour onto those lines quite thickly, and I'll tell you why when I get the light back out. Okay, so then, because when you blend it out, you don't go over that full thickness of the dark. You just want to go, because otherwise you're just going to be colouring it back over to a different, it's going to all look the same. So you're just going to go on the edge here of the dark, and you're just going to blend that out. So I'm just going on the edge of it, just blending it out. And you might prefer to use the fine. It's just up to you. And I do like to keep going in, but I won't for the video so that it doesn't go too long. But you just keep going until you're happy with it. But you can see how it really accentuates the lines in the skirt and up here on the top. So now for her hat, I'm going to use crumb cake. So I'm just going to go lightly over the hat, and I'm actually using the finer nib end this time, just to get some colour down. So I like to cover the image with the lighter colour first. Alright. And then I'm going to bring in the darker colour, and under the if you can see, the hat's got like a line going around here. I'm just going to go on that line and just under a little bit, and I'm doing that quite thick, and a few flicks up here, because as the sun comes down it's going to be hitting her hat. So the ideal is that we're just adding some highlights. So then just on the edge, I might use the finer nib end. We just want to blend that out. So, and I didn't grab out the ivory, so we'll just quickly grab that ivory colour. And I use this colour for the skin, and you're just going to flick it. It's a great colour for the skin. Because it's such a small area, I didn't blend much with this one. But you can see, how easy they are to use. And we'll just do her little leg down here and her foot. And just the arm over here. But I think this after the masking and then colouring with the blends, it really makes her pop off the card. So, and another thing you can do, you can grab some Stella Clear and just go down those lines there. Just adds that little bit of shimmer. Onto her dress, and we'll just put a little bit on the petticoat because we're not colouring that. Always love to add my little piece of Stella. So that's it all coloured, and you could go in and fiddle with the sponging if you wanted to, but we're just going to glue that to what we did onto our base card, which we made in the first video. And inside we went through and we just stamped some lovely of the trees on the inside of the card. And the only thing I've done is I've just put another piece of Early Espresso onto there. One thing that we will do is just stamp a greeting on there. Sorry about that, I did forget that we didn't have a greeting, so I'll just pull out my Misty. And we don't need that end. And we might just use the same. I'm just going to pop that straight down into the corner and put my Misty tool on there. Just pop the greeting. Now this greeting is a bit, you can't always go on the by going by the grid lines, so I'm just going to use, I think, the Onyx Black in the VersaFine ink pads that I like to use, and just stamp that up. And one thing I like to do is I just like to lay that down, just making sure that I've got that going straight, which it's not going straight, and that's why I like to test it first. just so that's a lot better. It's going straight. So it goes to show that you can't go by the grid lines all the time. It's just that the way they've created this stamp. So we're just going to put that down there. And I don't think I need to do a second stamping on that. And I do explain about the VersaFine inks in my first video, so just be sure to check that out. And now all we've got to do is glue this to our card base onto there, and we're done. So I will just grab my multi-purpose liquid glue. So you can see the inks comes through a little bit. They do recommend that you use the thick Whisper White cardstock from Stampin' Up when you're using the blends, but I've used the shimmery white, and I also use watercolour paper. The watercolour paper I use when I'm using my blends is Bristol, and it's the smooth one, and it seems to bring out the blends more of a vibrant colour, and I really like how it brings them out. That'll be another video. Okay. So I'll just try not to get too much ink on my fingers. Now I'm just eyeballing that down so it's got a nice little border around the outside. And I'm just going to slide my finger up there just for the glue to take. Good thing about multi-purpose glue, as I've told you before, if you do put your cardstock down a little crooked, it does give you that time to gives you that little bit of time to move it if you have to. So I'm just going to, so that the glue takes. And that's our card today. So I hope you will try these new products, and I hope you'll try this technique. I really love this card. It's one of my favourites that I've done. So I'll just zoom you in a little bit so you can see what I mean. Like, this was my first attempt, and I used the daubers down here, and you can see how it's a bit patchy, even though it's still okay, but it's still a bit patchy. Whereas because it's such a large area, and it's very hard using the daubers in a very large area, so, and this is where we use the brayer, so it does give, and at the top too, that was using the brayer, and this was using the daubers. So the brayer does give you a more smooth finish, but when you're doing little areas in here with the grass and the sand, you do need to use the daubers in there, but then you can blend it out using the sponge brayer as well. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I will put the link, as I say, to the first video below in the comments, so if you haven't checked that one out, check it out. This one was using the blends too, using the pink pirouette, and this is using the rich raspberry. So yeah, I'm going to be using them an awful lot. I'm really loving using them. They're so easy to use. So thank you for subscribing to my channel, And until next time, happy crafting.